Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Professor Abdallah Obadamu. I've been trying to hear your voice before this time, but I couldn't. And I assumed you may not have heard my voice. Can you hear me, sir? You are muted. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, sir. So it's 12 on the dot, and in our usual practice, we don't like starting late. So we are going to start to this roundtable conference right away. Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Gloria Aneto, the Director of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies at the National Open University of Nigeria, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria. I am here to present today's our monthly webinar and with a roundtable conference today. And so we have very big guns here today. We have 4 professors from 4 different universities in Nigeria to handle today's topics in this roundtable conference of today. So, but before I start introducing these very big erudite scholars, let me tell you briefly about our center in case it's your first time of joining us. Our center is Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, like I said earlier, and it was established in February 2020. And it's a state-funded Center of Excellence, and our business is to look into migration issues. This center was started under the leadership of the immediate past Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Abdallah Obadamu, who is one of the speakers of today. And since the 5 years ago that this center has been started, it's been waxing stronger. It's been waxing stronger and stronger, and we have been mandated to serve as and to provide a leverage for the field-based and solution-driven research in migration, to serve as agent of national policy for migration studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series, to collaborate with stakeholders in the field and policymakers to organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures. I want to tell this gathering, this audience, that we have been very much into achieving our mandates, and the vision of the center since its inception. This webinar we are having today, we have it every month, every second Wednesday of the month. And in the last 5 years, we've not had anyone that we missed. And then, of course, we have a strong journal, international journal for migration in global and global studies. That's our journal, and we have a website, which one of my admin will soon put on the chat board for you to be able to go straight. We have our website. You can locate us, and of course, we are very much present in other social media handles. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Our activities are all over there, and we encourage you to look at them, and we look at ways you can collaborate with us. We are ready for collaboration as much as possible, and I believe that what we are doing now is still an avenue of collaboration. And let me tell you that last year we had a workshop on sensitization about migration in the university. And this year we had an international conference, which was very much well, attended. And we are also planning right now to have a workshop. A workshop is coming up October 14th and 15th. October 14th and 15th. We are going to talk about academia's input to migration activities, which we have noticed it has not been very well connected or open we are now going to sensitize ourselves, that is academia, on how to participate and make our presence felt in migration field. So today is another presentation which is going to showcase academia and what they think about migration governance and so on and so forth. So we shall have a very fruitful deliberation and come up with issues, recommendations to the government concerning today's topic. And today's topic is basically on migration policies and governance, implementation and sustainability in Nigeria. That is today's topic. And individuals will answer some questions for us and we'll go on. As I tell you now about individuals, I'm going to tell them our mode of operating. It's not just discussion as usual. This time around, we're going to ask specific questions, which these erudite scholars in this platform will help us to answer. And they are all academics, and not only academics, but professors, distinguished professors. So they are going to help us to answer them, and our audience will ask us questions, and of course, they will round up, their subtopics. So let me start. The very first person I have here, and who will start this roundtable today, is Professor Abdallah Adamu, but I'm going to just read a very abridged citation of all presenters, very, very abridged citation of all the presenters, so that we know a very little about each of them. So I'm going to start with Professor Abdallah. Let me just quickly introduce him. Yeah. So Professor Abdallah Adamu is a professor of science education, as well as professor of media and cultural communication at Bayero University, Kano, Nigeria. So double professor, that is his popular name, double professor, and this is very rare. So you know that when I told you we are here with erudite scholars, that first sentence already shows that we are here with erudite scholars. And this professor was the immediate past vice chancellor of this great university, the National Open University of Nigeria. His main research focus is media studies, popular culture, ethnography, social, cultural, and media anthropologists. He was a Fulbright African Senior Research Fellow at the University of California, Berkeley. He served a single-term tenure as the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria between 2016 and 2021. His research focus is on Islam and popular culture in a traditional African society. He had served as a visiting professor at the State University of Rutgers, New Jersey, the University of Florida, Gainesville, United States, School of Oriental and African Studies, London, UK, the University of Cologne, Humboldt University, the University of Hamburg, Germany, the University of Basel, Switzerland, and as the European Union visiting professor to the University of Warsaw. His research have been published in Research in African Literatures, Humanities, Politique Africaine, African and Asian Studies, Journal of African Media Studies, the Annual Review of Islam in African Hemispheres, Studies of Cultures and Societies, and others. His books include Hausa Cinema of Northern Nigeria, Cultural Imperialism and Censorship, Bloomsbury 2025, Transglobal Media Flows and Hausa Popular Culture, Visually Ethnographic, Kano 2004, Status of Open and Distance Learning in Nigeria, Commonwealth of Learning, Canada 2022. He is a filmmaker and ethnomusicologist with channels on YouTube. And his website is www.auadamu.com. For more of Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, you can scan a particular link he gave us here, but I'm not opportune to give you that link yet. So you can easily reach out to him or collect his contact from me if you want to know more about him. So he's into it all and he has migrated many times, only that he did not migrate permanently. He migrated and returned. So it is the kind of migration I think we are wishing to have to return. But he has been a migrant many times. So that is Professor Abdamu's brief profile. So the next person here, I'm going to take Professor Tracy Chima Uto Ezeaju. Professor Tracy is a professor of theater and film design. You can see relationship. You know, Professor Abdallah, I was telling you about his film, and so we have another film. So I hope we have a lot of drama and film produced in this roundtable today. That's just a joke. Film design, who has also executed projects and carried out researches in the areas of migration and gender studies. She studied theater and dramatic arts at the University of Ife, now OAU, Jos and Port Harcourt, all in Nigeria. Uto Ezeagu holds many postdoctoral fellowship awards. She is a Bellagio Residency Rockefeller Fellow 2008 and a Fellow of the African Humanities Program of the American Council of Learned Societies 2009-2010. She was appointed a member of the NUC National Technical Committee on Nigerian Universities Arts and Culture Festival in 2010. She is an assessor, advisor, and mentor of AHP, that is the African Humanities Program, and for many other award-giving bodies. She is a member of the Nigerian country team for the AHP. She is an ASA Presidential Fellow. She led the team of scholars in the bilateral academic exchange program held in the Chinese University of Communication, Beijing, Xiamen University, Huaqiao University, and University of Education College of Chinese Language and Culture. She was awarded the Firebird Foundation for Anthropological Research Fellow for 2018/2019 and the Endangered Materials Knowledge Program large grant award of the British Museum for a documentation/documentary project for the period between 2021 and 2024. She has executed training and migration research projects for the International Labour Organization and Deutsche Gesellschaft for International Zuma, let me just say GIZ for abbreviation. She has also coordinated and facilitated a mindset shift training program for 4 cohorts of ethnocentric skills development trainings between 2024 and 2025. I can go on, but let me say, what I want to say here is that she is currently the director, Center for Migration Studies at Nnamdi Azikiwe University. And she has given her inaugural lecture, 26th one of that university, and we're happy to have her here today. Let me just leave it at that because I must say Professor Tracy's CV is a wonderful thing to read, and we have a very long one. So we have to abridge it so that we go into today's business. So, and I'm going to take the third person, who is Professor Nduka Eze Nwabueze, who studied in Ibadan and Unilag. He did his first degree at Ibadan, greatest university in Nigeria, and and he did his MSc and LLB in University of Lagos. He's a professor of sociology, specializing in development studies and industrial relations at the University of Lagos. In the last decade, though, he shifted his area of research interest to the complex interaction between education and development. In that context, he has evolved a new discipline which he calls Afrocentric sociology, with a bias for the imperative of indigenous African education and knowledge for the continent's development, a value that has eluded the continent stemming from the inadequacies of the hangover of colonial education. He has over 50 peer-reviewed journal articles and chapters in books. He co-edited 5 textbooks in cognate disciplines of development sociology. He was 2-time head of sociology department at the University of Lagos. He was pioneer dean of the Faculty of Management and Social Sciences at Denis Osadebe University, Asaba. He was visiting scholar in residence at the University of Switzerland, New Eswatini, in 2007. He has held sabbatical appointments at the National Open University of Nigeria, Lagos, 2010 to 2011, and visiting professor in the same university in 2023 to 2024. He also held sabbatical appointments at Ahmadu Bello University, 2020 to 2021, and Denis Osadebe University, Asaba, 2022 to 2023 session. Among their standing publications are Nwabueze N. 2024 Afrocentricity, The Power of Weakness. Inaugural lecture was held in 2024, and so on and so forth. There are so many things to say about Prof too, like the others. But I will say right now, I know that he's married to one of my great friend and colleague, Professor Malara Nwabueze, and he is currently retired from the University of Lagos, but not tired. He is very much active and still doing work in various fields of academics. So we shall talk about his topic later, which I will go through so that we can get it and understand it well. So that's all I will say for now about Professor Nduka Eze Nwabueze, because I really have epistles here concerning profiles, and I know that I cannot say everything about these wonderful scholars here this afternoon. The last but not the least, of course, this is our own homemade, our own home, and this is Professor Ganiat Adeshina Othman. Professor Ganiat Adeshina Othman holds PhD economics from University of Putra, Malaysia in 2011. She's currently the Directorate of Advancement and Linkage, National Open University of Nigeria, and her faculty is Social Sciences of the same university. She was the former dean and head of the Department of Economics, 2016 to 2020. And she has served and still serving on several university and faculty committees, such as the Senate Research Grant Committee, University Examination Committee, Business Committee of the Senate, Chairperson, Research and Ethics Committee, Chairperson, Faculty Academic Board, Business Committee of Senate, and so on and so forth. She was a visiting professor, head of academics, Center for Research, Innovation, Development, and Entrepreneurship, CRIDE, UK, 2022, and NINE University, Abuja, Canadian Association of African Studies in 2024, member Women in Higher Education Leadership, Nigeria, Britain, 2023. Member, Open and Distance Learning Association of Nigeria, Odilan, 2023. She is a senior member of the International Economic Development and Research Center, Hong Kong. Member, Nigerian Economic Summit Group, 2013. Fellow, Institute of Islamic Finance Professional, Institute of Managerial Economics of Nigeria, Honorary Fellow, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and Fellow Pride UK, member, Development Study Association 2021 USA, International Association of Feminist Economists, Houston, USA, full member, Organization for Women in Science for Developing World, member, African Council of Distance Education, Kenya, member, Collaborative Research Association for Social and Management Sciences, Nigeria in 2019, former Governing Council member, Institute of Islamic Finance Professional, associate member, Chartered Institute of Cost and Management Accountants, Nigeria chapter, full member, Canadian Association of African Studies and Development Studies Association. She is the former editor-in-chief of the Journal of Social Sciences 2016 to 2020, certified e-learning facilitator and teacher educator. And I can go on, but she has published with over 70 articles, in several distinguished scholarly journals. And I can go on about Professor Ganiat Uthman Adeshina, but I will stop here because I know that this fantastic scholar, we can't say it all about her in just the few minutes we have for this exercise. So I am now going to start from this last one. Let me tell her. Our topic, like I said earlier, is migration policies and governance, implementation and sustainability in Nigeria. She will be looking at questions around sustainability of migration policies in Nigeria. That is for Professor Utma. And for Professor Nwabweze, he will be looking at that topic around the subheading of implementation of migration policies in Nigeria. So one is sustainability of migration policies, that's Professor Utman, and implementation of migration policies is by Professor Nduka Eze, Nwabweze. And I'll now say that of Professor Tracy will be looking at migration policy review in Nigeria. And finally, I now come to Professor Obadamu, who will be looking at migration governance in Nigeria. So they all have their topics and they know their topics very well, but we're going to start straight off now. We have heard about these great scholars and we are starting, and I will moderate. So let me just tell you, distinguished professors, I will be asking you questions relating to your headings, your subheadings. Like I will start from Professor Abdallah for sure, and I said he will be looking at the governance, migration governance in Nigeria. I will ask him some questions, which I am sure he will be able to respond to. And after asking him those questions for about 10 minutes, the conversation is very directed towards those questions. And I will go around the other speakers too, ask them their own questions. Then, after asking them their questions, I will now come back for each person to do a kind of 5 minutes roundup. 5 minutes in the sense that they may, the subtopic given to them, they may want to round up on it, brief talk on the topic, because they are not going to only answer questions, but they will have something that they would want to say about those topics. So it's 5 minutes for that. After which, after going around all the 4 of them with those 5 minutes, which I'm sure our audience will be noting down what each person has said and what they will want cleared, as in to clarify points or to ask questions from whoever has spoken. And I will note those questions And the speakers themselves will note those questions. So we shall not get responses again from them. So at the end of the day, you can see that here today, we are likely to spend like 2 hours for this exercise. And I'm sure our speakers have eaten and have taken water, and we can give them e-feeding if need be. Thank you very much. And I want to start with Professor Abdallah. Professor Abdallah, sir, can you hear?
Yeah,
Yes. You
sure.
are going to, or do you want any clarification before I start? Let me ask before I start to bombard you with questions.
No, I don't have any clarification, but I have to leave at 1:30 because I have a class at 2 o'clock.
Okay,
And
we'll
I
try.
have
We'll try to see how much we can achieve before then.
so
Thank God we are
I have
starting
to leave
earlier.
exact at 1. Yeah, because it's already 12:30 now. Yeah.
Yes, I said
Okay, go
even
ahead.
without knowing you have an appointment, you are the first, so we are good.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. So your subtopic, we are talking about migration governance, and I am now going to ask you, sir, how effectively are existing migration policies being implemented in Nigeria? You know, there are
Well,
policies. Oh, I have internet. I hope I'm not the only one not hearing him. Is everyone hearing him?
Yes, well, we can't hear him.
Okay,
yeah, but
okay, okay.
yeah,
Okay, sir.
but I can hear everyone. I can hear you.
Yes, we lost you just for a few seconds. Over to you, sir.
You don't really need to be a professor to answer this question because social media and news outlets, you can see how many countries are banning Nigerians from coming inside their countries. And the reason this is happening is because of certain policies that have been taken by those governments or those organizations against the mass migrations of Nigerians. Your question of migration governance really is around we have a robust policy framework. There's no doubt about it. Government has a fantastic, robust social framework, but we have weak implementation. And the reason why we have weak implementation is because migration is not something that is very, very regular. It's not a process that people start out in a particular structured way. People sometimes just find their way out of the irregular migration and so on. So yes, there is a robust policy and there is a migration governance structure which government has provided with all sorts of necessary things in order to make it work. But the question is, does it really work? And I think this roundtable is focused on finding out why it works and what will make it work much better. Because Nigeria has developed an extensive array of migration-related laws and policies, including the 2015 National Migration Policy, 2014 Labor Migration Policy, 2021 Diaspora Policy, and the Immigration Act, as well as a regional engagement through ECOWAS protocols. However, these remain largely symbolic on paper. That's the truth. Their real-world application is hindered by poor coordination among government ministries and agencies, resource constraints, both financial and human, institutional weakness and bureaucracy, corruption, and reactive policy making. For instance, a quickly rescinded expatriate employment levy due to stakeholder backlash, or these reactive policies are indicated in when Nigerians are being harassed, like for instance in Libya, that's when the federal government will send an aircraft to evacuate them. Federal government does not have any policy about their welfare when they are in the other country. It is only when things happen bad to Nigeria, that is when government will start reacting toward that. And another problem is governance, data, and planning challenges. Fragmentation of data systems across ministries prevents real-time monitoring and data-driven decision. Most of these migrants or immigrants do not have a way in which they can tell people, I am migrating, I am leaving, I'm going to another country. And therefore, there is no data that you can use to effectively determine the flow, either inflow and outflow. And we're talking about mainly outflow, but not inflow. We're talking about people getting out of Nigeria, but not people coming into Nigeria. So we need to also look at those issues and see how these things are likely affecting general migration policies.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Let me say that it looks like you have taken number 2 question, which is to be
Okay.
about the challenges to enforcing
Okay.
laws and regulation. So I've been able to get that from the first question, you don't
Okay.
believe that it really works, the migration policies, and that government always act when emergencies occur.
Reactively.
So, but I want to know, the key challenges to enforcing migration laws and regulations? Because we do have laws and regulations. What exactly are some of these challenges you want to share with us? That's your second question.
Well, like
yes, sir.
yeah, I have already indicated the key challenge. Are you talking the question to me again?
Yes, no, I want you to list it as vis-a-vis the laws and regulations, the key challenges in enforcing. Can you please repeat the challenges in
Well,
enforcing?
the main challenge is fragmented institutional coordination. The agencies that are responsible for migration policies do not seem to be coordinating their activities effectively enough for a policy to come out that will guide migration policies. Another challenge is that this most of the migration policies or most of the migrations are done by irregular migrants, and therefore getting data on them, taking enough database on them, in order to determine their welfare is difficult. And there are so many. I have about 5 or 6 of them. There's corruption and political interference. That's another key challenge. There's social and humanitarian pressure. That's another key challenge. So these challenges about migration are dependent on effective policy coordination, policy implementation. So there's a strong policy, but there's implementation. And all these policies are on paper, but we are incapable of implementing them as effectively as we should in order to take care of welfare of migrants. But at the same time, we are also asking, should it be the responsibility of the government to encourage people to leave? If you have a migration policy, should the migration policy be targeted towards those living in the country, or should it be targeted at those coming into the country? Because when you have people who are japping all over the place, you are saying you want to create a policy for them. And this policy for them means that you are now making it easy for them to leave the country. Is that want? I mean, to me, that is the biggest challenge of the existence of the policy itself.
Okay. So, sir, what measures are in place to ensure safety and security of migrants, both within this country, Nigeria, and during their journeys? When they are here, what are the security?
No, that is why I find it very interesting. Somebody in Kano, here, let me give you an example, because we have a lot of irregular migrants from Kano. Somebody from Kano decides he doesn't like to stay in Kano, he doesn't want to live in Kano, and he decides to leave. And the first thing they do, they go to Niger Republic. That is in Niger Republic. And then from Agadez, they get a car that will take them across the desert all the way to Libya. Okay? So how do you expect the government to provide security for them when they are exposing themselves to danger? I mean, do you want the government to provide them with armed escorts so as they leave Kano and they go to Maradi, from Maradi they go to Tahawa, from Tahawa they go to Agadez, and there is an escort for them so that they can migrate? So it is not the government's responsibility to provide them with any security because you decided to leave on your own. We have video clips. If you have been watching the House of Phone media, there are hundreds of video clips of these immigrants who are now recording themselves dying in the desert, who are recording themselves dying in Algeria, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, and in Saudi Arabia. Many of the young girls who leave Kano go there for prostitution. And many of the young men who go there for labor, undocumented, unskilled labor. What sort of security do you expect the Nigerian government to provide for them when they are irregular? None of them says, I am going to migrate out of Kano and therefore I want government to do this for me. Or they made their bed, they have to lie on it. They decided to live on their own, and the government does not have any responsibility for them. Because even then, in my view, government should not have any policy that encourages people to leave. Government should have a policy that will encourage people to come into the country, to invest into the country. And an investment be financial, it could be skilled labor. So these are some of the issues. I don't think there's any security in place for the government, by the federal government, to enable our migrants to be secured wherever they are going.
Okay, sir. Thank you for your response so far. The next question I would want to ask you, sir, in what ways can Nigeria improve coordination among various government agencies involved in migration governance?
That is by establishing a task force. The task force will enable effective coordination of areas of competencies and responsibilities. What areas are we competent on? What areas do we have responsibility for? And what are our international obligations in regards to cross-border passage of individuals? What about health issue? What about religious issues? What about banditry and so on and so forth? So government organizations in Nigeria that I just reeled out, that government responsibilities for particularly policies such as the National Immigration Policy, Labor Migration Policy, Diaspora Policy, Immigration Act, need to create a task force among themselves that will coordinate their responsibilities or their obligation to migrants, whether inflows and outflows. And I keep insisting, we tend to be looking at migration from the perspective of outflow rather than from the perspective also of inflow. I mean, look at what is happening in Ghana. Just about 1983 also, we have this Ghana must go. Nigerians are getting rid of Ghanaians because they believe that they are taking over their economy. And now the situation has reversed itself. This year, 2025, Nigerians have been kicked out of Ghana because now Nigeria must go. So we need to look at the way these policies affect our individuals, our lives, and so on. And it is up to the governments, agencies that have been created to create a task force among themselves to coordinate this. If Nigerians are kicked out of Ghana, what measures does the government have in place in order to receive them, to reintegrate them? Then government is only reactive. Government reacts only when something like this happens. But nobody will sit down and analyze why are Nigerians being kicked out of Ghana? Why are Nigerians being prevented from going into Dubai? Why are Nigerians being restricted from many other countries? We only look at the fact that Nigerians are prevented from going over there, but we don't look at why they are prevented from going over there. So it is not just a question of having a policy, but it's a question of reaching out to people. If you have to leave the country, make sure that you leave the country for a proper reason. Make sure that you leave the country based on a specific value that you are adding to the country that you are living. So I think the best way the government can do that is by creating a task force among the various agencies responsible for that. And there are also civil society organizations that deal with welfare of migrants. And again,
Okay,
those also need to be
sir.
involved.
That takes me to the next question. How can partnerships between government, civil society, and international organizations be strengthened to improve migration governance?
Prof, and ladies and gentlemen, we all know this. Government will have a fantastic policy in place, but without the willpower, the political willpower to implement it, things just simply don't happen. Yes, we can have all these collaborative task force that I said between civil society and government agencies and organizations, but they require a sustainability from the government, and this sustainability oftentimes is not forthcoming. We can come up with all these fancy ideas based on fancy theories, based on humanitarian theories, and so on. But at the end of the day, you find that we are not able to achieve this sustainability. Either A, because there has been a change in government. Because when new government comes in, they revise the policies of the old government and say, no, this is not our priority. So there's lack of continuity in government. Or B, even if the present government that created these programs is still there in power, they may simply re-alter or reskill or change or completely change the direction of their policies to something else. So how can we do that? Political will, strengthening political will, and making sure that when we set up the policy, we really mean to do it. I mean, there are still policies that have been created but have not been provided with enough funding for them to be implemented. And this is the critical issue. You can come up with a policy, but there has to be a way in which this policy can be implemented and, most importantly, sustained. Because lack of sustainability of these policies is why they don't work.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdallah. And on this note, I will take the next speaker while you rest for now. Thank you for your information. I really think you did justice to my questions. The first one, you have said that policies don't really exist. It's only maybe emergencies to bail people out that exist. And to enforce, the challenges mostly is due to lack of coordination of policies, irregular migrants, social, humanitarian pressure, policies on paper not being really carried out, policies targeted on those leaving the country alone instead of also looking at those coming into the country. For the second question, which asked you about the challenges to enforce migration. And the third one, you talked about talking about security. You said that government cannot even should not, in fact, provide security for people who are living in the country because it's their own choice. So government should not make that their headache. I hope I'm summarizing what you implied. And then the fourth one talking about how to improve coordination among various government agencies. And you have said it's to establish a task force. And then through looking at the areas that we have strength, what are our strengths? And so we can now use those task force to check all those banditry, health, and whatever we want to check. And it must involve both the inflow and outflow, not only those who are leaving the country. And then talking about policies, which is the final one about partnerships and all that. And you said, well, there are fantastic policies, but our main problem in Nigeria, as known by all of us, is about sustainability. That and without sustainability, whatever policies the government has put in place can't be achieved. And then the governments come and they erase what the other one has said and want to do it their own way. And so there's a lot of, confusion. I would say one will say the former one said is to go, the newer one will say is to come. So we need political will. And that is the answer to having this fantastic policies being implemented. I think that's a summary of what I put down for what you have given us this afternoon. So I would like to go to the next person, and that next person is Professor Tracy. Yeah, I'm going to go like that, man, woman, woman. So now after Professor Tracy, Professor Nduka Eze, and then finally our own Professor Ganiat. So let me go to Professor Tracy and then ask her own questions. And Professor Tracy, I want to ask, because yours is about a migration policy review in Nigeria, and I know you have spent some years in the migration agency. I mean, you are very much on top of that. So please, I want to ask, what role should academic institutions and think tanks play in migration policy review and development?
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. And thank you everyone here this afternoon. Academic institutions and think tanks are critical stakeholders in migration management. In fact, migration management will not advance much without the input of academics. In academics are involved in teaching, researching, advocacy, sensitization, information dissemination, communication, and all this, to a large extent, they are research-based. So the first thing that academics do in terms of migration policy review is to provide research-based insights. And the migration policy review that we are talking about, you know that in Nigeria, we have so many migration policies. We have the National Migration Policy, we have the National Labor Policy, we have the Immigration Act, we have so many other policies, we have the Refugee Act and so many others. And you know that every policy is supposed to be reviewed after 5 years. After 5 years of its shelf life, it is supposed to be reviewed because so many other issues would have come up. There are new issues that would have come up that we need to be put in the policy, that we need to be reflected in the policy. Just like the National Migration Policy, that the review ended this year when it was validated during the technical working group meeting in Abuja earlier this year. But that migration policy, it was adopted in 2015, but the review started 8 years later, not 5 years later. And then it took roughly 3 years, 2 years, and before incidentally, I was a member of the committee that reviewed the National Migration Policy. And you see that when you pick a policy, you will discover that so many current issues are not reflected in the policy. Many issues have come up. The Japa syndrome, it was not here with us before, when the policy came up. There are so many other issues. Forced migration, a lot of forced migration is going on right now because of insecurity, because of flooding, because of natural disaster, because of so many things. Many IDP camps are springing up all over the country, refugee camps and all that. And all this, these policies related to this may not have been captured in the review, in the policy. And so there's a need for the policy to be reviewed so that it will contain new knowledge, new information, and it will address current concerns in the society polity. So academics, they provide research-based insights. They conduct rigorous research and analysis to inform policy decisions because, you know, like Prof said when he was presenting, that we need to know why are Nigerians not being allowed into Ghana? Why are they not being allowed to come into Dubai? Why are they being thrown out of so many countries? That is what research can do. It is not a social media thing. It is not he said, she said, I said. It's not an assumption thing. It has to be research-based. It has to be fact-based. One has to carry out research, test and measurement, understand, conduct interviews, go to the and find out exactly why this is happening. Because once we understand why
Prof, since I have more questions for you, the first one, I think you have expatiated on it quite understandably.
Okay, sorry. So there are three issues. Research, we need to have research-based insight. Then we have academics facilitate stakeholder engagements by convening policymakers, practitioners, and experts to discuss and develop effective migration policies, like what we are doing now. And then, of course, they promote evidence-based policy making by bridging the gap between academic research and policy formation, and they foster international cooperation. Thank you very much.
Okay, I got that. So, are there opportunities to improve the effectiveness of migration policies through policy changes or new initiatives? I think you have answered it a bit in your explanation, but then just for purpose of recording, let's see. Are there opportunities to improve the effectiveness of migration policies through policy changes or new initiatives? What will you tell us?
Yeah, there are opportunities to improve effectiveness of migration policies. It can be through policy reforms by reviewing and revising existing policies. And you do that to address emerging challenges and opportunities. And then, of course, new initiatives by developing innovative solutions such as digital platforms to enhance migration management and governance. I could expand on that if there's time. And then international cooperation, like I mentioned, strengthening collaboration among countries and regions to address global migration challenges. And here you have to bring in the needs for bilateral agreements that will enhance the capacity and further protection of migrants, especially labor migrants and all the other ones.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. What role can technology play in improving migration management and governance?
Technology is crucial, very, very crucial in migration management and policy. Technology will help by enhancing data collection and analysis. There's need in Nigeria. Most of the time, you find out the problem is not with the policy, really. It is with implementation. And implementation always sometimes hits a brick wall because we do not have data sharing policies. So when we enhance data it will enhance data collection, and technology will enhance data collection and analysis and enable data sharing so that information will be immediately gotten on the spot. Immediately, somebody needs to know immediately. The information is there at the click of a button. The information is there. and it will streamline migration processes. You know, implementing digital platforms, it helps to facilitate efficient and secure migration procedures. So many processes of traveling, immigration processes, and so many other processes. And of course, it will improve border control, and it will improve the security of migrants, even in their destination countries. Because you notice now that we have migrants who travel out. Some of them are deceived because they work through private employment agencies to get jobs outside the country, some of them in the Gulf Cooperation states. And when they get there, their documents are seized and they are trapped and they do not know what to do and they do not know who to run to, because of course Nigeria does not have bilateral agreements that will safeguard them or protect them. There are no labor desks anywhere that they can run to. But you know, technology can help. If there's a website dedicated where they can just click and just make a complaint and it will go viral and help will come to them. And there are so many things that technology can do to enhance migration management and governance.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Then your next question is, are there sufficient resources allocated to migration management and border control? Because I know right now you talked about border control as what technology can help to assist in. So are there sufficient resources allocated to migration management and border control?
Okay, Prof, thank you for the question, but the question really should be, do I think? So because I wouldn't know. But
Okay.
we all know that in Nigeria, resource allocation most of the time does not meet the need of the individual agency, so that you find agencies are handicapped. Now, NAPTIP, they are interested in rescuing trafficked victims, but they do not have sufficient funds. And so most of the time, if they do not get funding or sponsorship from IOM, GIZ, or other foreign agencies, they will know what to do. They will know there are trapped migrants. They will know that they need to do RRI, return, readmission, and reintegration, but they will not have the funding. So I do not think there's sufficient resources for migration management and border control. You talk to immigration, they will tell you a whole lot of issues that they have, bordering on lack of resources to implement so many strategies that they know to secure the borders. They know what to do, but they do not have the resources to do it. You talk to the National Bureau of Statistics, they cannot supply you the statistics. They know what to do, but there's no resources for them to get the equipment that they need, to get enough spaces to store the data that they need, and then of course to share the data. So it's a recurring decimal. It appears that we do not have sufficient resources for migration management and border control.
Okay, Prof, thank you so much. You know what I just enjoy is how you said I should rephrase the question. And I smiled. I said, well, I can understand. It's not easy. Okay, let me now say, how do you think, let me try to go your way, irregular migration, human trafficking, and migrants studies are being addressed? How are they being addressed? Do you have some?
Irregular migration, human trafficking, and migrant smuggling. You know, somehow they all go hand in hand. The irregular smuggling and trafficking, they are offshoots of irregular migration. The migrant starts out by paying somebody to the smugglers, paying somebody to smuggle them. Along the line, they get trafficked. Then some are trafficked out immediately. Now, how do we help them? You know, Prof actually said, and that is the truth, these people leave the country on their own. they pass through Niger, they go through the Agadez route and find their way to Libya, and they attempt to trek to Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. And you attempted to ask, I mean, what are they thinking? But then, being that they are citizens and being that the migration policy addresses every migrant, there is need. There is need. In fact, people are beginning to do study on missing migrants, because we don't have the statistic, but one should ask missing migrants, those people that are missing in the desert, who are they, where are they, and all that. So we need to strengthen laws and policies that will effectively protect undocumented travelers. Irregular migrants are undocumented travelers. That means that we don't even have their data. We may not have their data. We may not have their statistics, but they are Nigerian citizens. And so there's need, because some of them, when they go there, if they succeed, when they settle down and they begin to make money, we begin to talk about remittances, and the remittances begin to come in and they help us to develop the country. So we should strengthen laws and policies, develop and enforce effective laws and policies to prevent and combat human trafficking and migrant smuggling. If we have effective policies in place and we implement them, we'll be able to effectively block this, prevent it in the first place from happening, so that when people want to travel, they will travel regularly. Then we need to enhance international cooperation, so that when migrants are stranded or they are trafficked, there will be, because there are bilateral agreements between our country and the other country, there will be a possibility of bringing them back in terms of voluntary return. And then we need to provide support to victims, offering assistance and protection to victims of human trafficking and migrant smuggling, which
Okay, Prof.
is doing a lot of that.
Okay, Prof. Thank you so much for your contribution. I am actually done with your questions for now, but let me say that just a quick reflection on what you have told us today. The academia, their role. You said that their role is a big do, because they need, you know, and the Titans, they need to have a critical they are critical stakeholders in migration, and that without them, the advancements in migration field will be near impossible. I don't know. So, and they need, you know, the academia are the ones who bring research-based insights into migration issues, because they take care of the research, they provide data. Data is life, you know, and it can help to reach places. So their contribution in migration is very, very invaluable, because it is something that we need to think of critically, and new things keep coming up concerning policies, you know, that every 5 years, ideally, policy should be changed, but you are telling us that right now, 8th year, we are still actually expecting the final pronouncement of that policy that you said you people have concluded. We've not heard about it, that is out. So I don't know when maybe they announced it, you will see, tell us later if they've announced it, but it is ready, in quotes, as I can hear. And that time when they did it, Japa was not raining, you know, but Japa started raining in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. We started hearing Japa, but it was not there then. And there are many new things that come up. So research bring out all these things, just more than what social media will say. Social media do not have the basic data that research that the academia will provide, we have. And you also said that in your second question, yes, there are 2 policy reforms. We can provide new initiatives, you know, when we're asking about the opportunities to improve the effectiveness of migration policies. And you said new initiative, such as a digital platform and what have you, international cooperation. We can, yes, that we can do that. And you did stress that technology is very crucial, because that is where data can be reached. Somebody who is maybe 10 countries away from Nigeria will just click and get information. You know, so many international, local, African, Nigerian, we can all make use of technology to improve and enhance data collection and analysis. So data is very important. and to help us to also streamline migration activities, because we don't even need to be moving from one border to the other to go and look for data. When technology is there, everything will be within our reach. Then you also talked about resources. I said no, that you cannot even answer that, because we know that in Nigeria, resources is always a big problem. But for the foreign agents that help to sponsor some research here and there, the people who should be actively involved, NAPTIP and co, do not seem to have enough resources to carry out their duty. And then finally, you now talked about irregular migration and all those ones that I put together: irregular migration, human trafficking, and smuggling. That all of them, they are interwoven. One leads to the other, and that is why we need to strengthen laws and policies to identify them, and we do not have enough data to also let us know where people are and who the people are. We just know that the irregular migrants, of course, we know they don't take the normal route, they escape, and those escapees, how do we know them? And the data, we have to come in here and we have to fish them out. So one of the ways to fish them out, you did say that there could be international cooperation and bilateral agreements. And I want to stop there so that I can take the next person. I hope I spoke your mind, summarizing what you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. So now we are now going to call Professor Onwabweze. Professor Onwabweze is the next person we are going to call to give us his own. Sorry, just a minute. So, sir, Professor Onwabweze, I can't see you, but I want to believe you are there.
I'm here.
But we would have liked to see your face.
Very much here.
I would have liked to see your face so that some of us will know you talking to us. We may not know you fully. Some people would like to see your face.
Okay, I will try as we go on.
Okay, sir. Now, what are the major challenges Nigeria faces in implementing its current migration policies effectively?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, the two first speakers have helped me quite a lot in answering those questions. For example, they talked about weak institutional coordination. They talked about adequate funding and limited data and research capacity. But in addition to this, I want to mention the attitude of government and government advisors. And I'm happy that the second and the third speakers talked about irregular migrants, smugglers, and human traffickers. Well, yes, they are irregular migrants, but they are Nigerians. And in fact, a lot of the embarrassment that we have as a country come mostly from these irregular migrants. So that my position is that you do not reject your child because he has a hunchback. They are still Nigerians. And the government is responsible also to them. There is no problem that has no solution. It is for us to begin to find ways and means to gather data, to infiltrate the population, and get data on irregular migration. It has its own trajectory. There are places that they are known to converge before they take off. There are also institutions, there are individuals who facilitate these things. Well, whether you say it is the work of the espionage, if we spread our dragnets, we will actually be able to know more about irregular migration, because that is the problem, that is the challenge. Two, I also think that we need to manage our borders a little bit better than we are doing at the moment. I'm not unaware about the challenges because of the vastness of the country And we always talk about porous borders and porous borders. But we are not the country with the longest borderline in the world. I don't know if we have border patrols, day and night border patrols, air patrol, land patrol, mounted patrol, and what have you. So that particularly these illegal routes, it's not that there is a day will come when we are able to cover them 100%, but any day that we discover a new route, the better for us. The more information that we have, the better for everybody. That is about the porous borders. And then I think also that one of the challenges we have is limited diaspora engagement mechanism. The Diaspora Commission is doing quite a lot, but as a government agency, I think that they should do more, or a particular sub-unit for engagement, for sensitization, for contact, for visiting, and then for encouraging people in Nigerians in diaspora. Okay. If also we have a desk, an investment desk in the commission, so that people who have resources abroad, you know, some of them are so afraid. They hear about insecurity. They talk about, you know, clever people who will mismanage their funds, who will disappear with their funds. We need an engagement mechanism with them, because once you're out of the country, what you hear is news. You are not here. And many of them get so frightened and are not returning their resources home. Now, let me also say that another challenge is poor public awareness. Poor public awareness. Each time that we have a conference or a workshop like this, I just say that we are talking to the converted already. We're talking to government officials, we're talking to advisors, we're talking to the academia. We are not even talking to kingpins, those who actually mastermind irregular migration. We're not talking to them because we have given them a bad name. We don't interact with them. We don't know where they are. Of course, they move on the ground. And a lot of information that we have, what we think is the dark figure, what information we actually need, we'll get from them. And some of them are very educated. Some of them, you know, off camera can speak and give some information vital for the purpose of gathering information and making the challenge of managing migration in Nigeria a bit less stressful than it is at the moment.
Okay,
Let me also
Prof. You have time to come back to round up.
Okay.
Let me
Okay.
quickly take
All
the
right.
next question for you, which is, how can Nigeria leverage migration to achieve its development goals and policies?
Okay. Very quickly, I was just talking about engaging the diaspora Nigerians to channel remittances into investment. That is one way that we can leverage on migration. Two, if we can manage the outflow of particularly professionals and highly skilled Nigerians, well, there is nothing. Section 41 of the Nigerian Constitution says everybody has a right to move. It is human right. It's a fundamental right. But if you move and we know that you are moving for the good, if you move and you are moving for good, yes, we should know, particularly if you also want to move and we see that your movement, for example, at the moment in the country, I think it was sometime last year, the Minister of Health said, although I haven't confirmed this, I saw it in the newspaper, say in the last 5 years that Nigeria has lost between 15 and 16,000 doctors, but to Japa, it was said. This is hemorrhage. This is horrendous. More so that if you get to our own hospitals here, you don't find doctors, particularly in the rural areas. There's a dearth of doctors. And there is a critical mass of doctors going through the borders and going to serve other people. I think that we should look at that direction. How do we manage, particularly the outflow of Nigerians with expertise, with skills, that are professionals, that we need daily at home, but they are escaping and going to other parts of the world. Two, I think that we need to institutionalize a program to encourage technology transfer through what I call diaspora know-how remittance. Diaspora know-how remittance. Well, there's capital, there's financial remittance, but now we're talking about know-how, talking about technological remittance, what people call technology transfer. We should try and do a little bit more in that direction. Okay? Fine. I also think that there is a need for synergy between the migration policy managers and the various institutions of government with our tertiary institutions, tertiary educational institutions. The problem often talks about frictional and structural unemployment, that the institutions produce staff, skills that the industry does not want. And what the industry wants, they don't produce. Again, that is one of the reasons that at the end of the day, you find quite a number of people who come out, if they are not employed, then they want to move. If they can't move legally, they move illegally. So that one of the things that we can do in that regard is to try and streamline our manpower policy, our national manpower policy, in such a way that we produce the people we need and they can be able to retain them at home and then get the best that they can contribute to national development. Three, I think the upscaling of community buy-in to migration implementation is a very, now the community buy-in to migration implementation, how do we leverage on that? You see, whether we talk about internal migration or cross-border migration, there's always a local community at the point of exit and at the point of entry or at the point of destination. There's always a local community. And these local communities have a lot of information. They have a lot of information about the situation on ground, how the people that are coming in, the kinds of local skills that they will acquire, what kind of, whether it is fishing, whether it is agriculture, whether it's whatever, things that may not require so much finance to be able to absorb these people where they are. But the moment we do not leverage on the resources of the local communities, the opinion leaders in these local communities, the imams, the presidents of associations, retired principals, and people like even NGOs, even CBOs in these local communities. Yes, they can do quite a lot. We can tap into development resources in migration and migrants.
Prof,
through
it's like you are already on my the last question I want to ask you. Well, you're already on it because what I wanted to ask as your last question is, what role do local communities play in the implementation of migration policies, and how can their involvement be enhanced? I guess you're already answering this question. So I would just want you to put that in mind. In addition,
yes, talking about the local communities, well, reception and integration. Local communities can do so much about that, receiving migrants and integrating them into their community. Okay, because of course they are the first point of contact, and talk about social inclusion in the area, talking about the community leaders and what have you. And then conflict prevention and management. The local communities can do quite a lot in educating the people that are coming in. This is what you can do. This is what we are not allowed to do. This you don't do with our religion. This you don't do about our sacred forests. You don't do this about women that are married. You don't do this about men that hold such positions, and so on and so forth. You don't do this kind of play with children. You see, it is the local communities, the people who are there, that will advise migrants when they come in so that they are properly integrated into the community. Secondly, I think that there is service delivery and support. Service delivery and support, for example, access to basic needs like water, shelter, energy, healthcare, education for migrants. The local communities can do quite a lot in ensuring that they have some respite at the point of entry. And if also when they want to leave, it's easy for returning migrants to dispose of their assets if they are well enmeshed into the community where, they have come in and they were, part of the community for a while. And then skills and employment creation and management. As I said at the beginning, those who are coming into the community, who are particularly internally displaced persons, for example, in the communities, they need quite a lot of resources. Some of them come without almost anything. And it is the local communities, that we give clothing, that we give food, that we give whatever for people to sit down. And then those of them that want to acquire skills, it is amongst them there, whatever skills, both for, women that are married, that cannot go too far, for children, and for those in school age, it is the local community that will imbibe, that will absorb and show these people the way. So they are very, very useful in, policy maximization. Now, there is also the feedback and adaptation policy, or feedback and adaptation policy, that is monitoring and reporting. The local community can do quite a lot of that. Then local data collection, whether by NGOs, whether by CBOs, whether by local authorities, whether by local government authorities, even migration management offices in the local area, and then policy communication, places where people can go in the local communities and they hear, yes, we can, this is available. People from government are coming, as also did. They come once in a month, they bring also resources, and if you come around so that you can also benefit, health workers will come and assist us in this community, as also did. Now that you are here, you also can be part of it. And finally...
Okay, sir. I wanted to say, I want to go to the next speaker. Okay, just one word finally so that I go to the next speaker.
Yes, finally, partnership and co-implementation. Just to say that the local communities are collaborators. They are not just bystanders. They are part and parcel of the management team of government and civil society in ensuring that we maximize returns from migrants and their comfort and their safety while in these local communities. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for your contribution. Let me quickly say, we got a lot from you. Starting from the first question, you told us that the first two speakers did justice to your topic, and which you appreciate. And then you said, but you want to add that there is a attitude of government and government advisors. The attitude seems to be a problem to how to effectively handle the policies. So, of course, he did mention that these irregular migrants are Nigerian, and we have to love them despite their defects. I really appreciate that part. And I said, and the proverb you gave us about hunchback, you can't throw away the child. that was noted. And then you said that the challenge is irregular migration, and we need to manage our borders more effectively. Day and night border control, where our border is porous borders. And that's a point you raised still under the first question, and you said we have a limited diaspora community engagement. So you are advising that we should take that more seriously, and you should talk to those who mastermind irregular migration. That the people are there, but because we talk so much negatively about them, they won't even want to come out to tell us the way forward in their own view and all that. So the second question, you said that we should leverage, maintain the diaspora engagement for us to leverage here, and human right is a human right to move, to migrate. And I want to believe that you also complained about doctors who have jackpot over 16,000, and no doctors in Nigeria to even treat their own people. They are all out there. Then you said we must know that the diaspora thing, of course, remittances, know-how remittances. You talked about diaspora know-how remittances. We should do more in this direction. I think somebody will like to ask you how you think they will do that later. I think when it's question time, I may be that person who is insinuating that already. And then you also talked about synergy with migration, government, and tertiary institutions as part of the ways to improve all these policies. And then you talked about upscaling community buy-in. So we just have to get a lot of information, because we cannot underrate the community, because they have a lot to offer. And then you say that, reception and integration, that is the local community, they have that role that they play for returning migrants, I suppose. That there's a lot of reception and integration on the part of the local community. And so they are very useful, and we should work with them if we want better results. And you said that in areas of food, skills acquisition, and all that, the local community cannot they cannot be thrown aside. They have to look in so that we get the best from the local community, and that we can also get data from them, from offices in local areas, and then, of course, partnerships and so on and so forth. So I'd like to stop there, but I want to just confirm that some of these things I said are actually what you said in your presentation, Prof. Am I right? Is Prof still there?
Well, yes, you are very right. You're very right.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, so the last but not the least speaker, Professor Ganiat Additional Uthman. So we are going to hear from you, Ma. Are you there, Ma?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. All right. So please.
Apologies, Prof. I have to leave in 5 minutes. My
okay, can you round up then? Maybe you should round up. Prof. Ganiat,
okay,
please just excuse us for 1 minute.
No problem.
Round up his own 5 minutes, because we
no problem.
have.
Okay. And let me use the opportunity to greet my Vice Chancellor, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
Professor, how are you? Alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Prof.
So mine is fairly straightforward. Yeah, Nigeria boasts a comprehensive migration policy architecture, but implementation lags due to coordination issues, underfunded institution, bureaucratic rigidity, and limited data infrastructure. It's very, very critical. That said, localized anti-trafficking and reintegration efforts, notably in Lagos and Edo State, that seem to be the plus points of irregular migration, and internal collaboration with IOM, EU, are creating meaningful impact, even if unevenly distributed. Encouragingly, the 2025 migration revision, coupled with the MGI assessment, signals a gradual shift towards more structured, rights-based, and data-driven migration governance. When we're looking at these governance policies and migration, we tend to focus really attention on not the regular migrants. because the regular immigrants are those who normally leave the country under normal circumstances, structured circumstances, are accepted, they have a job, they have employment, they have skills that are used in other countries, and therefore they remit. And when you talk about remittance, you are talking about the remittance from these people, like Professor Tijani. He's a very good migrant. He goes out there and sends every month. I'm very sure Tijani sends about $50,000 home. So those $50,000 will contribute to the building of his community. But the irregular migrants, those that we have seen in Dubai and in Saudi and in Morocco, I was in Morocco recently, and we have seen these Africans that are irregular. They are laborers, basically doing low skills, paying jobs, and so on. And they are the ones that tend to be abused effectively. So how can we solve this problem? Nigerian embassies, wherever they are, will have to be aware that there are irregular migrants from Nigeria in those countries. So it is now we have to shift the point of view from Nigeria migration policy to foreign policy, and the foreign policy from Nigerian embassies that are located outside the country. For instance, it is the responsibility, or that should create some kind of responsibility for the Nigerian embassies in our countries to map out and identify Nigerians in that country. I know Nigerians don't report themselves to the embassy. Even when we go for studies or for conferences in other countries, we don't really voluntarily go to the embassy and say, here I am. That is what you are supposed to do. But now that people are going there illegally or through irregular processes, Nigerian embassies, wherever they are, should take it upon themselves through government policy, from the federal government of Nigeria through foreign policy, to make sure that they know and map where Nigerians are located wherever they are in that country. Once they know where they are, then they can provide services for them. Maybe they can ask them to come back. Maybe they can take care of their rights and their responsibilities. But most of the migrants will not alert the Nigerian embassy about their presence in the country until something happened, until they were arrested. I was in Poland some time ago, and a Nigerian was arrested because he was a regular immigrant and was taken to jail. They wanted to repatriate him back to Nigeria, and he said he's not coming, that he'd rather stay in jail in Warsaw than to come to Nigeria. So, and the Nigerian government couldn't do much because the man started screaming his fundamental human rights are being violated because they are trying to force him to come back to Nigeria. So this is the critical issue on migration policy. We have to change the point of view from Nigeria, talking about Nigerian migration policies, to now focus on in those policies, in those embassies, to make sure that they have a database of irregular migrants in the country. And then that's the only way they can provide effective counseling for them. Counseling can come in many forms. They can provide them jobs, like in Saudi. Bangladeshi immigrants are integrated through an employment scheme by the Saudi government in collaboration between Bangladeshi government and the Saudi government. So all those guys who clean at the streets and toilets and so on and so forth, Bangladeshi, were recorded by the Bangladeshi embassy as being employees of Saudi, but at least the embassy is aware of them and can protect them and provide them with the necessary assistance when they need. I think this is my summary.
Thank you very much, sir, for that summary. What I can see now, if just that you said you have 5 minutes, I cannot say they should be asking you questions because I don't know, that may take much of our time. Perhaps if there are questions from Professor Abdallah, we will have to write them out and he will answer them on our WhatsApp group. I don't know, later in the day, we'll open the WhatsApp group for continued discussion. So, or in the chat, we can put some, which we can now send to him later, because this is being recorded, and I pray we retrieve the recording, because we've had some technical hitches in the past concerning recording, so that he will answer those questions. Because it's like you are going to miss the question session, and I'm sure many people have some questions for you. But this is noted. We'll open the WhatsApp group for the Center for continuous discussion on this, and we also take the chat for questions for Professor Abdallah. So thank you very much, sir, for that. Let me just take the last speaker so that we can have the discussion follow the normal route. Thank you so much. Okay, Professor Ganiat, over to you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
The first question I have for you is, what role should the private sector play in supporting sustainable migration policies in Nigeria?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Professor and moderator, and the director of the center. I want to thank the previous speakers. They have actually spoken very well, and what I'll be saying will be complementary to all they have said. You can see that migration issues is changing the narratives around development, around security management, border management, so also around international relationship. Like a lot have been mentioned about the behavior of Nigerians in Ghana, in South Africa, even in Malaysia, and a lot of places like that. So it's also changing narrative about job placement, remittances as well, among many others. So the migration issue, when I'm talking about migration, migrants here, I'll be talking about I will be referring to them, to the irregular and the irregular migrants, because they both, whether it is regular or irregular, they are both migrants. And what I will tell you why I'm taking that stand, because migration is now a critical aspect of socioeconomic landscape in any country. So Nigerian government has recognized this, and that's why a lot of series of policies, Immigration Act has been enacted, Immigration Act of 2015, and a lot of others, And then the Nigeria Diaspora Commission was established just to take care of migration issues as well. So what role would the private sector play? I'll give you the first one that comes to my mind is they have to really, they have a broader spectrum of roles to play in crucial roles to play in supporting sustainable policy, migration policy and governance. Actually, when we talk about labor mobility, most of these migrants, they end up in the private sector. Like the previous, Professor Abdullah said, you see, most of them is that they end up taking care of the elderly, they end up at the construction companies, or they end up in the farm. And I will give you example of what is happening currently in the USA. Just yesterday, the headline was that in California, in the state of California, there was loss of 4,000 farm workers due to the crackdown on illegal immigrants or illegal migrants, and they are these people that dominated the workforce in the farming sector. Now, another issue is that at Los Angeles, they said 1,200 construction companies have been abandoned because there are no workers. Also in Florida, people, they said the job loss in the elderly care is about 30 to 50%, job loss for the elderly sector, such that the people are not able to get enough people to take care of the elders at the elderly homes. So if the private sector thinks that the public sector can do whatever they like with migration policy and governances, no, because they will be each other. They will be each other when there is a crackdown or there is loopholes or there is poor implementation policy of migration policy. So they have to partner with governments to fund. That's number one recommendation I will make, to fund and support migration management. They can leverage on their, resources and expertise to fund innovative solutions to this problem. Now, the farmers are complaining in California that the fruits are, the farm produce are rotting because there's nobody to pick it up for them. What role have they played in ensuring that these people are, integrated into the system, like Professor Wabudi said? The local community has a role to play. And so the private sector where they work must play a cogent role in doing this. And also, they can as well, the public sector can as well, collaborate in terms of capacity building with officials of relevant agencies. We have been mentioning in Nigeria, for example, the Nigeria Identity Commission. You can also mention the NAPTIP is one stakeholder that is very important to migration issues. Also, Nigeria Immigration Services, Nigeria Customs Services, all of them, if private sector can, do capacity building for their officials, that is the kind of collaboration that all the three speakers have actually talked about. to ensure that there is good implementation of the act and the policy that we have, and to ensure that they are effective. So again, I want to also note that the public, the private sector can actually provide essential services to migrants. And I will talk in terms of economic and social survival. Social inclusion. I want to give an example of when I was in Malaysia. Part of the example of the social services that I can give to them is language training. When I entered into that country, we were made to go through a semester under a course called Bahasa Melayu. Bahasa Melayu is a language of Malaysia. So they want us to know the basic language of how to speak to the locals. This always assists migrants. Also, they can assist, public sector can assist in terms of cultural training. I'll give an example also of what I was taught in the Bahasa Melayu class. In Nigeria, when you want to point to somebody, you do like this, that person. It is an insult in Malaysia. It's an insult. But they told us that how you can address, you don't do like this to anybody in Malaysia because you are insulting that person. What you have to do is to fold your finger, then point your, I hope you can see my hand, point your thumb, and then hold that. You even use the second hand to hold it, and then you point. That is a sign of respect that I'm pointing to that person. If we don't know as Nigerian, we'll be offending them. Then job placement is another thing. Whether they are regular or irregular migrants, I believe that the public sector have a very important role to play in supporting them especially when they are using their services. Most importantly is public-private partnership. Collaboration, with the public sector, the civil society organization, to develop and implement the
Okay. Looks like we have lost Prof. Internet connectivity problem. Please, can anybody hear me? So that I'll be sure that it's
We can
me.
hear you, ma.
We
Okay.
can hear
We
you.
can hear
Yes,
you.
we're hearing you.
Thank you so much. Let's hope she will come back. If not, we take the next session for people to round up and then she will come to her own. Let's just give 1 second. If she doesn't come back, then we take we take others to round up so that we can start the question and answer session.
Sorry, I'm in the library. I think they took off the light, but it's back. So I'm sorry for that.
Welcome back, Prof. Over to, let's go to the next question. Let's go to the next question.
Let me quickly conclude on that bridge program. That bridge program is a very innovative initiative from the Ministry of Education in Nigeria, and I think it's going to be that's a kind of public-private partnership that can actually help Nigerian educational sector as well as the our people in diaspora. Okay, thank you, ma.
Okay, the next question, ma, thank you, is what strategies can Nigeria adopt to ensure long-term sustainability of migration governance amid global migration shifts? I think some of the
Thank you,
questions
ma.
have
Thank you.
been
Very
taken
good
by you,
question.
but then maybe just a brief, concluding part of it, like it's the first and the second are almost linked. So what strategies can Nigeria adopt to ensure long-term sustainability of migration governance amid global migration shifts?
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma. I think when like I said, this migration issue is a kind of whole of society approach and all of government approach that we need to actually put into it if you want to have a sustainable policy and implementation. Number one thing I would say is about strengthening the governance structure. We need to strengthen the governance in terms of effective communication. Why am I saying this? The relevant agencies in Nigeria, for example, the ones I've mentioned, maybe NIS, NIC, Nigerian Service Custom Service, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, all of them are stakeholders in governance and implementation of migration policies. But what is the connection between all these agencies? How well can they communicate? Can NIC, can NIS communicate effectively with NIC? Can the Foreign Affairs and even the Nigerian Diaspora Commission communicate effectively with diasporas outside? So there's need for good communication coordination among agencies that are in the forefront of implementation of migration policies and then governance. Partnership cannot be overemphasized. There's the need for us to actually have very good relationship with international organizations as well as international all these countries that we are talking about. For example, if we have a good rapport with Ghanaian government, for example, they are now saying Nigeria must go, and we are seeing what is happening in Ghana, even destroying some people's property. What is all these agencies doing? How effective can they? Are they in partnership with a lot of similar organizations in other countries? This is very, very good. They must foster partnership and leverage on resources that they have over there, and expertise.
We are going to cut it short anyway if she's back, because if she comes back, maybe towards afternoon, maybe the hot afternoon, the internet is hot too. Okay. I think I would call Professor Nwabueze. No, let me call Professor Tracy. Tracy spoke before Professor Nwabueze. Sorry about that. Professor Tracy, please, can you round up your 5 minutes with your topic? Are you there, ma? Maybe she has also left. Okay, she's still there. Professor Tracy.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, our various topics are interconnected and intertwined, and we appear to be following the same trajectory. For me, effective migration governance in Nigeria requires a comprehensive and coordinated approach that addresses policy gaps. We must recourse to policy at the end of the day, addresses policy gaps and challenges, strengthens governance structures, that's what the Nwabueze was talking about, and promotes sustainability. And so to improve migration governance, looking at it, that we need to develop and implement a comprehensive migration policy framework, strengthen the existing policies, and then not just strengthening the policies, but we have to have a framework for implementation, so that it's not just that we have a policy or we have adopted an instrument or a framework or a pathway, but we have to, for sustainability, we have to have plans for implementation. Then we need to strengthen institutional capacity and coordination mechanisms, because all the migration institutions, all the agencies in the migration structure, governance structure, you look at NCFRMI, NAPTIP, immigration, and all of them, and then both state and non-state actors. All this, there's need to strengthen their capacities and coordination mechanisms. And there has to, of course, to be that collaboration between state and non-state actors, between all the stakeholders, for migration governance to be effective in Nigeria. And we need to strengthen institutional capacity and coordination mechanisms, as I said. The academia, we have to sit up. The academia has to, they have to really get engaged in migration business, It's not just, it should not just be for a few, because academics have a lot to offer. Like I said, when we talk about strengthening policy frameworks, we need the academia to do that. We need their research resourcefulness. We need data from the research. And we need to promote community engagement and participation. That's what Prof, the former VC, was talking about. And Wabeze was talking about the same thing, promoting community engagement and participation, because communities play a vital role. And these people that are trafficked, they come from a community, influences abound. And then border communities play key roles in migration movements. And then we need to enhance data and information management, strengthen data sharing capabilities and processes. And all this will help us to strengthen migration governance. And we need to review policies when they are due, because, yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your submission. We really appreciate it. Professor Wabweze, please, can you quickly do your 5 minutes?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, let me start by re-emphasizing the attitude of government and government advisors. And some of those advisors include us in platforms like we are having at the moment. There is this common saying that I see always online, that when you see a group of African migrants in Europe, they are either illegal immigrants, stowaways, job seekers, asylum seekers, or what have you. But that when you see a group of Europeans in Africa, they are legal migrants, they are expatriates, they are tourists, they are researchers. Even though we know that some of them, quite a number of them, are job seekers, and they come up here to take up jobs. But why am I re-emphasizing this? It appears that in our own policies, this mindset is at the background. One of us was asking what actually should be the role of government in migration policy. Is it to encourage Nigerians to move or to discourage Nigerians from moving? I think it depends. Government can play any of the two roles. If we are looking at professionals, people with high skills, as much as possible, even though we cannot, by virtue of Section 41 of the Nigerian Constitution, we can't control, we can't ask them not to move. But it's not in our national interest that doctors, nurses, pharmacists, university lecturers, what have you, they are moving in droves. They are leaving the country in droves. It's not in our national interest. If we cannot control whatever name we give to that policy, even if it means anti-JAPA policy domestically, we may not say government should stop them from moving, but government should step up policies, actions that will ensure that many of these people who we need desperately in the country do not move. On the other hand, government should think also of controlling illegal movements, illegal migration, so that when we think about what role can government play, I think we can make it a little bit easier for government to know that, yes, in some places, you can encourage movement. In some other places, you can discourage movement. That is one. Two, I believe that the Nigerian diaspora can become a powerhouse for development in Nigeria. Looking at remittances, looking at what I mentioned before, I called diaspora know-how remittance. Diaspora know-how, that is technology transfer, it's not financial remittance now. Remitting technology skills that we already acquired abroad by Nigerians, bringing them back home. That's what I mean by diaspora know-how, diaspora technology remittance. Okay? One way or the other, we can do more in these areas. Then local communities, as I've already said, are not just recipients of migrants, but they are co-implementers, and we should see them as such. They're also watchdogs. They are cultural gatekeepers. They are supportive elements in the environment, and they help to integrate newcomers and new arrivals. And they also bid goodbye for those of them that are returning or moving from the point where they have settled. I believe that these are areas that we can leverage more on. These resources, these are resources that are tapped,
Prof.
that are out
Thank
there.
you, Prof.
Thank you so
have
much.
really,
God bless.
you surprised your work. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So now I
Thank
hope
you.
Prof, let me check now if Prof is still here.
I'm here, ma.
Okay, yeah, welcome.
I have to
Okay.
change. I'm in the library because of this, but unfortunately, the light here is also fluctuating, and but I'm on my own. This thing, I hope it should be stable. I'm on my own Wi-Fi.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So actually, let me take you on the, I think you have said a lot about society and government approach, strengthening and all that. So let's go to the third question so that you answer and then we quickly summarize.
May I say something about sustainability of the policy? There's something that's very germane, and that
Okay,
is to address the root cause of or the underlying factor that is driving migration. Number one is poverty. Number two is conflict. And number three is lack of economic opportunities in the country. So these are the root causes. If we do not address them, there's no way any policy will be sustainable. Thank you. Can we have the next question?
So the next question is, how can migration contribute to sustainable development in Nigeria?
In a lot of ways, honestly, in a lot of ways. And we have been mentioning remittances. There is brain gain, drain and brain gain. You know, remittances, whether in terms of actually what they remit back to the country, is a big thing for the economic development of the nation. Let me state that according to CBN, in 2024, there was the remittances from the diaspora was standing at $21 billion. And in the last 5 years, it is actually over $90 billion, according to Nigeria Diaspora Commission. So if you look at that, that's the big deal, you know, and this is supporting household income, is supporting investment in the country, and this is part of what is stimulating the economic growth. So there are lots of other ways. Another thing is on skill transfer or technological transfer. Some other colleagues have mentioned it. You know, actually, when they are returning, when the diaspora are returning back, they are coming back with new skills, new knowledge, you know, new experiences that they can share with us. They can, you know, apply to the Nigerian economy. They are coming back to increase the human capital. Some of them are actually returning back, but some are returning back on their own, and some are actually being forced to come back. You know, part of the commendable effort that I think I noticed about the private sector is what the earpiece did when there was war in Ukraine. I think Ukraine war and what Russia. Yes, Ukraine and Russia war. You know, they were able to give free flights to Nigerians returning to come back to them. So how are we integrating them so that they will be able to, you know, apply these new skills they've acquired abroad, you know, to assist the Nigerian economy to grow better. And you know, another thing is where we can also leverage on is the Nigerian diaspora community, you know, abroad. They have they are actually big wigs, you know. They are big wigs of investment. If like now there's increase in, you know, remittances, and it is even more than what we have under the foreign direct investment in Nigeria. The remittances is improving better. At least in 2024 compared to 2023, there was almost 9% increase in remittances to Nigeria. And most of them are into investment. People are coming back to invest in the country. So there's need for this knowledge transfer from diaspora and also advocacy from them to us in Nigeria to, for sustainable development to take place. Thank you. Let me stop there.
Thank you so
for
much.
the last question.
What role can international cooperation play in ensuring the sustainability of migration policies? I think it's part of what you've answered, but you may wish to specifically
let me say something about that, because
yes.
I think yes, I've mentioned something on knowledge transfer or knowledge sharing and best practices, but I want to mention a particular collaboration from the international cooperation, this international organization for migration. There was a policy they came up with, a policy document, a working paper they came up with in 2023, and it has to go, working paper that will span through 2023 to 2027. And in that paper, they actually, in that policy paper, they recommended, they called that policy paper 3 I's. What are the 3 I's? The 3 I's, the first one is impact, second one is income, and the third one is, what's the third one? Impact, income, and innovation. Yes, innovation, I remember, innovation. So these 3 things, that they came up with, if the Nigerian government is able to work with this international corporation, there are a lot of, role they stand to play, and there are a lot of, there are a lot of benefit that Nigeria government can actually gain from this. And another thing is in terms of resource mobilization. If we collaborate with international organizations, they can facilitate access, to financial resources that can be used, because funding and supporting migration policies, implementation and governance require funding, and government alone cannot do it. So we can actually get capacity building support from them. We can also get access, access to financial resources from our cooperation with international organization. And lastly, we need to address international, transnational challenges that is occurring now. There are a lot of challenges that people have mentioned from one country to the other. Is it only Nigerians? What can we do? How can people actually behave themselves when they get outside? How can the international embassy, our Nigerian embassies at the international level in different countries, assist in ensuring that migrants, whether irregular or irregular, are actually strategically, positioned in the countries where they are, and they behave themselves? Let me stop here, and maybe you ask me for my wrap up. Then I can now.
Yes, I think you should go straight to your wrap up, because there's no much time for us again.
Honestly,
wrap up so that people can comment. Yeah.
My major wrap up is on addressing the underlying factor that is driving migration: poverty, job placement, conflict. It needs to be addressed in Nigeria. Migration provide opportunities and also challenges. Among the opportunities is, knowledge transfer, like I've mentioned, skill development of migrants, and new experience for them. But how do we, turn the challenges of, cultural acclimatization, social acclimatization, how do we turn it into, beneficial thing? And we also need to know that cooperation with international organization is very, very key. Nigeria alone cannot do it. Private sector and public sector alone in Nigeria cannot handle governances and implementation, because you're talking about cross-border management, you're talking about migration management, you're talking about implementation of policies on migration. So it is a whole lot for the public or the private sector in Nigeria to do. So international collaboration is very, very key, very, very germane to successful or sustainable migration governance policies. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making that wrap up swift. So now we have heard you, but let me just quickly also see whether I got some of the points that you raised in your own presentation. The first question that was asking about supporting sustainable migration policies in Nigeria, what role the private sector can play. And you said a whole lot, but I think the main things I put down here is we have to change the narratives migration issues are changing the narratives rather around development, remittances, job creation, etc. And that regular or irregular migration, they are all migrants. And so we don't have to look at one side and leave the other. Then you said the role of private sector is that it is a broader spectrum they should look at, and that considering labor mobility, that so many workers gave examples of a whole lot in the US, different states, workers. 1,200 workers also in Los Angeles, you mentioned 2 other states, and so on. So that labor mobility is connected to private sector, because I guess that most of those people are not really being employed by government, but they have jobs there. So government, the private sector too can leverage on government, to fund migrants. I mean, definitely, I would say they are funding migrants, but you emphasized it, and that we should collaborate and do capacity building for they should collaborate and do capacity building for their officials. And we gave so many instances of social inclusion in Malaysia when we were there and all that. So and then we should think about public-private partnership that can help in this area. So on the second question about society and government approach that you said can be, because to sustain a long-term sustainability of migration governance amid global migration shifts, you talked about society and government approach. You talked about strengthening governance structure, and all migration agencies, for example, foreign affairs, immigration, customs, how well are they communicating with each other? They need to, have partnerships and communication among, these people for us to be able to move ahead. And then you said that, of course, to get to the root of sustainability is to get to the root of the causes of migration. And that, we have to, if we don't remove the causes of migration, sustainability will be near impossible. And then the third one, you talked about remittances, is a big deal in the development of the country. And that you gave the instance of Air Peace, how he brought some people free from Ukraine, I suppose, when there was Russia-Ukraine war. And, this kind of approach, and then investments and all that, these are some of the things that we can look at remittances, how they can improve, sustainability and migration policies in Nigeria. You also finally talked about the 3 I's, in looking at the role of international cooperation, the role international cooperation play in ensuring the sustainability of migration policies. You talked about the 3 I's of impact, income, and innovation. I really appreciate those 3 I's. They are very important. You say that we have to work with international community and cooperation, for us to move ahead. And you also mentioned resource mobilization, that government alone can't do it. Cooperation with international groups will surely take us far. And our embassies in international communities have to put their own input to, to improve this area of migration. And in your wrap-up, you talked about the drivers of migration, conflict, poverty, and the others, and they have to be addressed if we need to move forward. And I think on that note, I would want to say, did I put some of your points down as you put them, Prof?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ma. And now, the final stage of this presentation is the space is opened for questions directed to individuals, because we have 4 professors. And like I said, since Professor Abdallah has left, we can still take some of his questions since we have recording on, and then we can put some in the chat, and we can also continue this discourse on our platform, because we soon want to close this presentation, because we've been here for a little over 2 hours. And we don't expect to, we won't like to stay beyond 3 if we can help it. So please let us ask questions. Okay, I can see Professor Tijani's hand up. It's only one hand I'm seeing up. In this very interactive discussion, only one hand. Okay, let's go over to Professor Tijani, you are welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Aneto, and thank you most sincerely, the panelists, for enriching our knowledge. It's another learning moment at the center, and that is primarily the reason why the center is a major visibility point for the National Open University of Nigeria in its origin. I have come to listen, to learn, and to add value. I am not representing any paper, but first, let me also thank you, Madam Director, for yielding to that clarion call made on July 9th when Barrister Igbinesun presented Reimaging Governance in Nigeria. And I think that is part of the genesis that brought us to today's roundtable. Having said that, and leveraging on your last comment, I think there will be a round table 2, 3, 4, or 5, it need be, to dissect fully and to go beyond generalization. What am I saying? I listened to the man that actually approved the naming of that center of whatever in 2020, that is Professor Abdallah, when it was suggested I should be called Migration and Global Studies, without hesitation. And I could see some generalization. We have to be specific. I am primarily a historian, and that is also why we need to do more roundtables to educate one another and continue to make NOUN Open University more visible nationally and globally. What do I mean by generalization and the call for specificity? The policies thus identify in his own comment. I just want to say that those policies, and I think some of those policies were also mentioned by Professor Tracy and Professor Unwabweze, that we are still aspiring to see his face. If not, I'm coming to pick my sister back and you have to pay another dowry. You may say she's old, you can come and take her, but I know you won't say that.
No, I won't say that. I won't say that. I will show my face very soon.
Thank you, sir. So
Yeah.
the specificity is important, and that should be the starting point of our next roundtable. If you agree as a director of this center at this moment, why specificity? We have students, we have policymakers, people are viewing us on YouTube, on Facebook, they will listen. And when you now zero in on specific, can you hear me? Can dissect all those policies. Having said that, I am aware that there is a strong coordination, okay, led by the Minister of Interior, Minister of Youth, Humanitarian, the MD CEO of NITCOM, National Orientation Agency, NDLA, NAPTIP, coordination to mitigate some of these people that jackpot without a cent, rather than making a good opportunity of that, perhaps opportunity to travel out, and we can debate that. For Professor Tracy, indeed, management and policy advisement is very, very important, as you mentioned, and I want to leverage on the call for curriculum, development, and to say that indeed part of the strategy at the Open University, particularly the Center of Excellence in Migration, is to start a diploma, certificate, or degree programs at the Center of Migration and Global Studies. And Professor Neto can address that to fill in the gap so that our colleagues on the other side will know. And I know of other institutions within Nigeria that are already doing that. But again, the pedagogy of teaching those courses so developed is one thing to develop the curriculum. It's another thing to be grounded in how to teach it. It's another thing to partner with agencies taking that facilitation or teaching at conventional institutions, for instance, beyond the classroom. So that is also critical. And I want to thank Professor Nwabweze and Professor Ganiat for mentioning NITCOM and the Diaspora Bridge. Indeed, it's a hub that we have to give credit to the current Minister of Education, as well as the Managing Director of NITCOM. So there's that synergy to mitigate JACPA, okay, and to encourage JACPADA, and to eliminate JALO, as we have mentioned in some other platform as well as published papers. Okay, so the thing is also that there is that synergy between government and our embassies. My current position is about Global Partnerships Africa. It has to do with interfacing with the embassy. And I know what is going on in Atlanta for Nigeria, for instance, in Atlanta consulate, as well as DC embassy, Nigerian embassy, and how they also interface with institutions within within the United States, as well as people that are studying, from Nigeria, particularly government sponsored, okay, in terms of collaboration, but it can't be perfect. Again, specificity is very important in terms of what period are we looking at. What was done during the Fourth Republic, if you can put that together, and then we dissect the various governments so that we don't generalize and they say, oh, these academics, they started again. Well, I am doing this. Why are they not mentioning this? I'll give a last intervention, the use of biometrics. I was coming back for the NITCOM 2025 event just last month, and I thought my Nigerian passport has expired. And I completed, paid, and I got to the embassy, which was, by the way, a day event. A day event, you won't believe it. But at biometrics, they realized that, oh, your passport is not expiring until next year. So we will KIV or we issue you, but you cannot use this, continue to use this one until, and that is, in addition to the seamless, uncorruptible way of doing things these days. I think there is a paradigm shift, sincerely, and that is the avenue from where I'm talking about the fact that we have to limit our generalization. It is not perfect, but there's a lot going on. Investment Ministry is coordinating with NITCOM. You just have to be at that event 3 weeks ago or so, and then you see how diasporans, Nigeria diasporans, return and they are investing. Community investment, NITCOM is doing fantastically by my own estimation. And this is not politicking. This is something evidence-based. I come to the table with facts because facts are sacred for the historian. Objectivity is the hallmark of my profession, and I'm speaking to what I've seen. As at yesterday, I had a meeting with diaspora Nigerian students across the United States, and I invited the president of Nigerians in the Diaspora Association, who is based in Australia. And a lot was said about Diaspora Bridge Program. Many of them do not know about it. That is where, as we stated during that conference this year, that advocacy is important. And what the Center of Excellence in Migration and the Global Studies is doing, that is the National Open University of Nigeria, CEMGS is doing, is so laudable, encouraging. And I think it also put us at that level of number one in terms of Center of Excellence, number one in terms of TED Fund sponsored Center of Excellence. And that, of course, under the current leadership at NOUN has been secured. Okay. No university can say that they started Center of Excellence in whatever nomenclature before, at least funded by TED Fund, before the National Open University of Nigeria. And again, it's been a learning moment. I will pause. And I am also multitasking. It's the first day of return of staff and faculty at Morgan. So I just have to come to this student office and speak. And I want to thank you again very sincerely for your knowledge. I think it's a brain gain, but please let us continue to advocate. Let us continue to tell others about not only the challenges, but how we can individually, help the government. Who is the government? It is all we the people. So, Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof, for your contribution. We appreciate your contribution to this discourse. Okay, Dr. Ejuko Nemo, I can see your hand is up. Over to you, ma'am.
Sorry, it's afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And all our professors that actually contributed to this discussion. It's been an enlightening and educative one. Thank you. Professor Abdallah has gone, but I will still ask my question. I wrote it down while he was presenting. And then I have another question for Professor Ganiat. Thank you, ma'am. I said from Professor Abdallah's contribution, it will be right to assume that he's not in support of the massive irregular migration that has been experienced now in Nigeria. As expected, nobody's happy. But I want to ask, he's not here, so I won't say you, how do we expect the government to address this unacceptable and embarrassing situation? Just as it's mentioned, that was the same thing I felt when Ghana said Nigerians must go. I remember the Ghana must go back that we all used. I was a teenager or I was still in primary school, pre-teen, I can't remember, when they were chasing Ghanaians out and the ones on my street were running away. I said, we were chasing Ghanaians out then because Nigeria was actually good, better than their country. And it's not an irony that they are the ones that are now throwing us out. And it's not just Ghanaians alone. Now it's becoming like a wildfire. Every country is now sending Nigerians away. It's so embarrassing that before we know it, I don't want to mention names of some countries. I hope those countries will not start throwing us out now. So the government needs to do something. So what do we advise that the government should do to address? That would take me to a question I wrote later, but let me just tie this question with that. Now, it's not just addressing irregular migration. That shouldn't just be the problem. What is the root cause of this migration? Why are Nigerians leaving? Professor Ganiat mentioned it. Poverty and so many things. The government should think of how to address this issue to keep people at home. I want to share a live experience I had here a few days ago. I pushed myself too hard last week and I was a little bit sick. I went to the clinic. I didn't go to a private hospital, completely big private, because it would be too expensive for me as a lecturer. And I also did not go to public hospital because I felt the stress would be much. And I went to a private public. Do you know that I spent the whole day trying to see a consultant? I was in the hospital waiting. The doctors were not there. The crowd was so much. And the next day too. And I just told myself, if somebody was dying and there was an emergency, before you see the doctor, the person is gone. And now people are living. They have reasons to live. Do you understand? I went to the hospital stressed. By the time I got back home, I was even more stressed than when I went to the clinic. And I was supposed to be feeling better. That's one. Then tying that, what do we expect government? What should they do? I have another contribution, another question here. Sorry, let me just read this. Professor Tracy said that we have existing policies. The problem we have in Nigeria is implementation in every sector. Every policy we have, the issue is not that we don't have good policies, it's implementation. And I asked here, Nigerians help, how can Nigerians help or the government help to cushion what we are going on now? This negative perception that Nigerians are having, how do we help them? That now tying that to implementation policy, coordination and implementation, as Professor Amdala was saying, there is this gap, the gap between these good policies and the gap between implementation, I think, is corruption, which Professor Amdala mentioned. How do we bridge this gap? Fine, they talk about funding. If you go to some of these ministries and parastatals, there are a certain allocated amount of money, which is huge. But where is this money? That takes us back to accountability. Nigerians, our leaders and followers should learn how to hold leaders or people in authority. I'm not just talking about government personnel. People in authority accountable. When one is given a responsibility and there's allocation or time, even allocation of time, resources to that particular office, people should be held accountable for what they do with such allocations. As long as people can just get there and they're not being held accountable, we still have that corruption gap and that implementation gap. Now we're talking about reviewing, and these migration policies should be reviewed every 5 years. And I asked myself, the last one, the one that is being reviewed now, was it really implemented? You are reviewing, you have policy that was not really 100% implemented, and you'll be reviewing the policy. Now, with this new one be implemented, having it at the back of our mind, the issue we have in this country is not the quality of our policies, but the level of implementation, which is being affected by so many issues, corruption, whatever attitude we have. So we need to find a way to close that huge gap. So I want our presenters, our contributors, to look for a way to please help us. I'm sure people, the stakeholders, will get hold of this video one day, and maybe Nigeria will be better off. We say people shouldn't go, but let's make them stay. Some of us that are here, yesterday I was asking myself, when I was stuck there in the hospital, I was like, I hope I didn't make a mistake in staying when I had the opportunity to have left. Thank you.
Okay, I'm laughing because we are going nowhere. We are going to enjoy our country together. We are going to enjoy our country together. So please don't go. Well, thank you so much for those concerns. And I don't know, Professor Tracy, are you still there? And Professor Ganias, you want to answer?
Yes, I'm here, and I really want to. I want to say that you shouldn't go to that route. You are not living for anywhere. You are not Japa. You have Japada. So please stay and let us make it work. Honestly, what came to my mind when you asked about what can we do to solve the root cause of these underlying factor that is affecting implementation of policies and governances in Nigeria. The first thing is computerization of our system. We need to computerize our system. Whether it is corruption that is our problem, especially with the ministries and the agencies, corruption is on the high side. But if things are computerized, and if we try to, our border management is very porous. We don't have data. We need to actually step up our game, do things differently before we can get different results. I want to mention the example of Malaysia the other time, and I think I'll mention the example of US, the UK, and other countries we have visited. If you come in, there are good record for you coming into that country. They monitor how people come through the border, through the air, through the land, through the subways. You can't go in through a country, through the train, and you are not captured. You will be stamped in. If you will be stamped legally, people comes into Malaysia, for example, to come and study. That is the best way to go to Malaysia. But when they got in there, what did they do? After they may not go to school, looking for a job, doing some part-time, and then when the visa expires, they're not going to into aiding. But they know you are there. They have your record that you are still in that country. I've been looking for you. Your record is still there. So they monitor their borders very effectively. But this is not by people standing at the border. No. If you meet a police person, a police woman or policeman on the street, when you are moving, you're not moving with your international passport. They accost you. They will ask for your name. Even if you mention a wrong name, they have the price that is they always move around with. There's a way to detect who you are. When you come into the country, they will give your details immediately. We need to, though there's collaboration between our agencies, the maybe Foreign Affairs Commission, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria Immigration Services, and the Customs Services, but it is not enough. They need to do more because the data we're talking about is a large data that need to be coordinated, that all of them should be on the same page. Not that, you imagine, you are at the hospital. In fact, I'll give you an example of an hospital or hospital experience that happened yesterday in Kuje General Hospital. Kuje General Hospital today serve Kuje and Kuje environment, Kuje as a mega city, and Lugbe as a mega city. Imagine the population of people in Kuje, you know, and with that Kuje General Hospital size. Now imagine Lugbe and environment, Ako, coming to Kuje to come and get health care. That was really bad. By 12 o'clock yesterday, one of my colleagues got there with an emergency with a daughter that is sick from the Uni Abuja. And they said, by 12 a.m., 12 noon, they said they're not collecting card again. When she was pleading with them, please help me. She's a colleague here. Help me. This is an emergency. They said, okay, you can go to emergency and then go and pay for emergency card. She paid 3,000, almost 4,000 naira for emergency card so that the daughter will be out. And she said yesterday, as they were even trying to attend to them, doctors were overwhelmed. Why are they overwhelmed? Because of the little number of staff that they have. And by 12 noon, they said they don't want to take no space. No doctor said stop attending to taking card from anybody. They have authorized the system, very easy now. From doctor to, I love what they have done, but they're not able to accommodate the influx of people that is now the way people are migrating to Kuje. This is internal migration because of the road network that they are doing there now. People that have houses there before, that abandon it, or land that abandon it, estate. People are just rushing to Kuje, and this facility is not improving. So there are a lot of things we need to do, to curb this problem. Corruption is number one. We need to tackle that corruption. And another thing I put down here is that transparency and accountability is very, very key. Is very, very key. We get some funding, we get some support on health, on migration issues, on education sector. How transparent are people that are in charge of, that are the custodian of this funding? Foreign aids are coming in from different countries to us. They are stopping some are still coming in. There was a time I have somebody who was at a regional aid for USAID. And when he was telling me what is happening in USAID, that all these things are coming in, that in fact, billions of dollar worth of medicine, original medicine, are coming into the country. We're supposed to be suffering and be giving chalk in hospitals. But corruption, lack of transparency, lack of data is actually affecting this country. We have to solve data and analytics problem in Nigeria. Until we integrate that system, there's no way we can have sustainable policy, not only in migration issue, but also in any other policy that we think we are implementing. May God help this country.
Thank you very much, Prof. And that is where we as academics are highly needed to fight this data issue, carry out research, produce data, and communicate our findings to the right sources, hoping that corruption will not kill the outcome of our research. I don't know how we can help in terms of corruption, but I would say you and I should take care of ourselves. If I am conscious of corruption and I try to fight it as a person, my own end, your own end, her own end, I think Nigeria will become a little better, if not over 50% better. Because interestingly, we are looking at the politicians when we are talking about corruption. Yes, I agree absolutely. But are we in academia free from corruption? Are we free? Are we doing the right thing? We should ask ourselves. So we all need to have our input, personal, your own, my own, so that we can get it lighter, because it has eaten into our system. Corruption is deep-seated in our system. It is now a norm, and you who is not involved in corruption is not seen as the abnormal person. So food for thought for all of us. I'm happy at this discussion because this is leading us to the workshop we want to carry out in October in this center. A workshop that will be of physical attendance, no online. We are going to have more to talk about concerning our own role as academia in migration, activities. What is our role? How can we take the front role and no more the back seat? Because those others who are there on the field, migration, we have the ones we can refer to as field workers, like we have been saying since, then we have the academia, which will stand up as an entity to make the change, to be the difference, to make the difference. So we are going to have a workshop 14th and 15th of October, but it's physical presence. We will all be there from the academia. We'll tell our friends, the poster will soon be out. We invite everybody. You'll be part of it. Let us come here at the National Open University of Nigeria and talk about the role of academia in migration. And I pray that we all find time to be there. We find time to be there. It's because we are still planning. We have not, gotten to the peak of the arrangement. That is why we have not sent it out to people yet. But very soon, we shall be there. I pray that before the end of this month, we'll reach out. Thank you so much. I don't know. I can't see any other hand up. Is any other hand up? I think we've had a long day. And like I said, we can't finish it all here. So thank you. And God bless you for always attending and coming to our discussion. I know that everybody in this panel today has been at this center at one time or the other. I think the first person who will attend and who we really appreciate our presence for the first time is Professor Tracy. And she is also the director of Migration Center at Nnamdi Azikiwe. So she's already at home because we are at home talking migration. So I want to thank you all for always attending to my request. When I say come, and they will just come. Not a kobo given to anybody here today, but everybody has come wholeheartedly and to give information, their knowledge, free of charge. And we will remember you when we become millionaires. We will remember you when we become billionaires. We will remember you when we become trillionaires. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
you.
Prof.
All right. Thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you, Prof. Yeah, it was a wonderful engagement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless
I want
you.
to call it a day. Bye-bye. Thank you, Professor
Bye.
Tijani, for your contribution.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye.